While some politicians think only rich people invest, but you and I know that millions of average Americans have money in the market, either directly or through 401k accounts. What should our audience know about something called inflation investing? And does it still apply right now with 2.4% inflation?
Well, absolutely. This is like we are entering an inflation era, and it's probably inflation decades, at least one decade, if not several. And we're in a, not to be too dramatic, but an inflation doom loop where inflation feeds on itself. And this has happened because the national debt is so high in the United States, and not just the United States. This is throughout the Western world. And it's almost 36 trillion now. And it's
Yes.
grown almost a trillion in the last 3 months.
Mhm.
It's skyrocketing. And years ago in 2009, I spoke about this. 15 years ago, I said, this is going to happen. I didn't say it's going to happen exactly in 2024, but I said, this is a distant future event. And we've arrived at it today. And at that point, the debt service, amount of interest you have to pay, because when the debt becomes so high, it starts to absorb a huge part of tax receipts till eventually it absorbs all of them. We're not there yet. That's several more years down the road. And then inflation just feeds on itself and grows like a bacteria, duplicating and spreading. And I've studied in my inflation books, and I've written four of them. There is a history of inflation. It goes back to the Roman Empire. So there's
Yes.
2,000 years of inflation. And I plan on spinning off one of the original books into a smaller, history of inflation book. So, it's happened over and over and over and over again. This is not new. So, and what the average person can always do something. And I have two colorful stories. And one is from the German hyperinflation in the early 20s. And there was a man who bought pianos. And, you need to buy hard assets. And at least he understood buy something physical that you can own. And that's the key to inflation investing, even if you're not technically investing. And those pianos maintained their value, and they saved his fortune. So it's rather odd. I'm not recommending anyone do this, but it's a rather odd thought. And people will come up with sort of creative, interesting solutions. And I have a more interesting story from the earlier 2000s when Bush gave money. There was some federal distribution to people, and poor people got more money. And I knew these people who ran a tax service in a sort of ghettoized area. And there was a colorful character that hung around, very uneducated. And he took the money and he bought a gold tooth that he could put in and out of his mouth. And it actually was gold. So this man did inflation investing, even though he probably didn't even have an eighth grade education and seemed to be a little crazy. But that gold tooth would be very valuable one day. And I don't know if he's still alive. I don't know this man. But that was inflation investing. So even poor people or even people with very little money can do some very odd things. Now, anyone can buy silver coins. They're around $35 right now. You can get solid silver. And you can get them from the Canadian Mint and a number of mints. And there's a number of services that sell them. And usually you have to buy like 10 or 25 a stack. So that's not too much. And anyone could get a brokerage account. You don't need too much money. And you can buy things called ETFs, which are exchange traded funds. And that's equivalent to, say, a gold. GLD would be a symbol for one. And that holds physical gold. You don't have to buy the gold. You can buy and sell these things like stock all day long. So, that's very simple. And you don't need millions of dollars or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Maybe,
Let me
thousand or
let me
two.
just interrupt you just slightly there. Gold is over $2,700 an ounce right now. I, in my lifetime, have never seen gold at such a unbelievable level, and I've heard silver is surging also. How do you feel about gold right now? Is gold becoming so uneconomic that you should be looking at silver and perhaps pianos versus gold?
No, pianos are very expensive. Silver, you make much more money on silver. It's
Yeah, that's
very
what I was thinking.
inexpensive. Now it's very inexpensive. Sorry, I have to go. The And anyone can afford $35. I mean,
Yes.
And usually you have to buy a group. Now Costco actually sells gold right now.
Yes, they do.
And my assumption is they were going to start to sell, and they're making a lot of profit off it. They're booming business for them, that they will start to sell silver also. So you don't have to pay $2,700, you can pay 35, or come in like 10-ounce bars or something. So you'll have to go.
Yes.
So people can do this and make great birthday and Christmas presents, by the way.
Now let me
And
ask
I
another
encourage silver. It's a much better deal in the long run.
and let me ask you another follow-up question on that. How about just the regular stock market? Many people in America I know, for instance, as a professor, I'm in a nonprofit college, so I'm at a 403B. Uh, I have very limited choices, but won't the stocks themselves go up with inflation in some cases, unless it's a business that's being badly damaged by inflation?
Well, the answer is yes and no. If you look back in the 1970s, the stock market was in very bad shape, except commodities were in very, very good shape. And you can, if you want to buy stocks, buy gold and silver miners. And the essence of inflation investment is precious metals, and that's gold, silver, platinum, palladium, or and in some instances, if the economy is good in the periods, base metals, industrial metals, that's like copper, tin, zinc, aluminum, and then energy, that's oil, natural gas, agriculture, which, not just the food, but fertilizer products for agriculture, like fertilizers, fertilizer stocks, land. The best real estate investment during high inflation times is rural land, not houses, not apartment buildings, not commercial buildings, pure land. And the reason for that is usually it's cheaper and very low taxes. Governments will be desperate for money and they will raise your real estate taxes, especially on your house and your commercial buildings, to sometimes astronomical levels. And I live in the Northeast. I'm not sure where you live, but if you go to places like Long Island or New Jersey, Westchester, places, the real estate taxes can be unbelievable.
Yes, they are here in Texas. Part of the reason I'm right in near town, Houston, Texas. Part of the reason that our real estate taxes are so high, and we also have a very high sales tax, is because we do not have a state income tax in the state of Texas. So we're all being taxed. And of course, real estate taxes tend to be something that's called regressive, because you got mom and pop, so they do have something called a homestead exemption, but the real estate values of close-in real estate are going up so fast that they're far exceeding the value of the homestead exemption, which is only $25,000 or $50,000 exemption, which means if grandma's house, which she paid $38,000 for 30 years ago, is now valued at $250,000, she's paying tax on $200,000 because she's got the $50,000 over 65 homestead exemption. That can be a pretty good bite. And so that supports what you're saying, I think.
It's worse in other places. Where I used to live on Long Island, the taxes could be 10% of the value of the annual taxes, could be 10% of the value of the house. And it just worked out. It happened to work out like that. So imagine that if in 10 years you paid the whole value of your house in Texas.
Right. It's some pretty amazing things.